Now, one of the most asked questions that I receive is, Teddy, what is the best affordable or attainable dive watch? By default, I typically am looking at watches from Japan, whether it's from Orient, Seiko, Citizen. There's just a ton of value when you're looking at Japanese dive watches. So what I thought would be helpful is looking at 3 awesome entries in the world of attainable dive watches and kind of pillars in this realm. One being the Orient Kamasu, one being the Citizen Promaster, and then looking at a general Seiko Turtle Patty. So in this video, we're gonna be looking at these 3 watches, kind of going through the just overview, major points going in favor or maybe not in favor of each one of them. And then at the end, talk about which watch is right for which type of individual. And is there a definitive watch that's probably going to be the best for most people out there? Let's jump into it. All right, guys, now before we jump into this video, I do want to mention that consultations are still going on teddybaldassarre.com, so you can talk to a dedicated watch specialist on our team. If you have a question for any watch on our site, book a time, have a conversation, and get you the watch that's right for you. Check it out, teddybaldassarre.com. Now, just some context and why I picked these 3 watches and why I thought they were probably some good representation here. Now, I figured it'd be fair to just look at Japanese watches to start. Plus, I think candidly, when we're talking about value and under $500, I think Japan is typically, the best place to look. I also felt that these watches paired up quite well with some different types of paths that one could take when you're looking at dive watches from this perspective. One maybe being a bit more towards the true diver with its ISO compliance and being a professional dive watch. You have other ones that are gonna more appeal towards, I would say, general specifications that an enthusiast would like. And then one that's gonna be probably more of a fan favorite in terms of its design architecture with the Turtle. So just kind of giving that context, I figured these are 3 great paths to go for, but let's begin looking with the Citizen Promaster. So this Citizen Promaster Diver that we have here is the most recent eco-drive powered variant of the basic Citizen dive watch design that has been on the market in one form or another for decades. Compared to the other watches in this video, the Promaster Diver features a more modern design, also compliance with the ISO 6425 standard, and of course, the dependability and accuracy offered by a quartz caliber within. Now, starting with the case and wear with the Citizen, the Promaster is large when looking at the diameter of 44 millimeters, but like many dive watches of the style, it wears much smaller, feeling more like a 41.5 to 42 millimeter watch on the wrist with the help of that 48 millimeter lug to lug distance. The case features a brushed finish and largely rounded architecture and sloping case sides that make the already wearable 11.6 millimeter thickness even more low profile, especially considering this watch's larger dimensions. A 60-click bezel with an anodized aluminum insert is also solid for the price, but does have just a bit of play in practice. Just short of the 4 o'clock position, a signed screw-down crown within the safety of crown guards and helps to enable this watch's 200 meters of water resistance, a factor also aided by the screw-down case back, which is laser engraved with the EcoDrive Globe logo. Approaching the watch's anterior surface, we have a flat mineral crystal that sits just below the bezel and provides a clear view of the legible dark blue primary colored dial surface below. With raised indices and hands with the minute hand in a vibrant orange, the modern Promaster exemplifies Citizen's traditional design with only a minor interruption by an outline date window at the 4 o'clock position. As mentioned, this watch relies on an EcoDrive caliber within, which has a now decades-long reputation for reliability and of course the convenience of being powered by both natural and artificial light. Speaking anecdotally to this particular example, the second hand lands right on the printed minute markers, though there can be varying levels of execution in this aspect as we're talking about an attainable quartz watch. As for accuracy goes, the E168 is designed to be accurate within 15 seconds a month, but we have found that these movements are going to be more accurate than that. In addition to the high level of accuracy, the EcoDrive calibers will last for years without the need of a traditional battery replacement, so you really do get a true set it and forget it type of experience. The movement does feature a capacitor though and a cell which stores the surplus of energy, and after years of use, it will eventually need to be replaced. But the service intervals there are much longer than that of a traditional battery replacement on a conventional quartz watch. Finally, set within the 20mm lugs, we have another Citizen dive watch standard, a polyurethane strap color matched to the dial and printed with a non-decompression time limits for recreational scuba diving, which, candidly, This is not terribly useful in a modern diving context, which relies heavily on diving computers. It does call back to the good old days when dive watches were essential life support equipment for divers. Moving over from Citizen to Orient, we have a fan favorite with the Orient Kamasu, often considered one of the best values for a mechanical dive watch on the market. In terms of standing out from the other watches in this video, the Kamasu features the most restrained set of dimensions. It measures in with a 41.8mm diameter and only 46.3mm in terms of its lug to lug. As a result of the real estate taken up by that prominent bezel, the watch wears significantly smaller than those measurements might suggest. For me, operating as a 39.5 to 40mm case in actual use, making this likely the best option of the three for smaller wrists. In terms of the case finishing, the Kamasu leans into circular brushing on its top surfaces with polishing along the near vertical case flanks. Along the 3 o'clock side, a signed screw down crown and the coin edge of the 120 click elapsed time bezel, which like the Citizen features a anodized aluminum insert in blue to match the dial. In this case, the bezel operates almost without play and features an impressive level of action, especially considering the price point, though it is a bit more stiff in its rotation compared to the other two entries here. Flipping the watch over, we have another simply adorned screw down case back with Orient's strange double dolphin emblem. I mean, Kamasu means barracuda in Japanese, so sounds like a missed opportunity, but humming away inside the case is the automatic Orient F6922 caliber. This is an in-house movement from Orient that, while utilitarian, is an appropriate and capable caliber in this type of watch. Operating with a 3 Hz beat rate at 21,600 vibrations per hour, features hacking and hand winding, a 40-hour power reserve, and a range of deviation of -15 to +25 seconds per day, which is better than many of the other entry-level mechanical competition. Another highlight of this piece and a major component to the value proposition offered by the Kamasu is the presence of a flat sapphire crystal, which is rare at this price point and adds a strong durability argument. Along with the Citizen, the Kamasu represents a clean dial design with applied triangular and rectangular indices, as well as a neatly framed day-date window. The sword-style handset follows the same steel framing, and the second hand features a pop of color with a red tip. On the Kamasu, we have an adjustable solid steel bracelet with solid end links that, despite the stamp clasp, is more than adequate for the price and matches the look of the watch well. As a note, despite this watch's capable specs, including 200 meters of water resistance and a reliable caliber, the Kamasu is technically not ISO compliant, though likely capable of pretty much any water activity that you are going to throw at this watch. Moving into what is perhaps the best known watch in this video, we have the venerable Seiko Turtle, in this case with the SRPE99 Paddy variant, a special edition designed for the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. Like the Citizen, the Turtle leans into a larger set of dimensions anchored by a prominent 45mm case diameter that is aided in terms of wearing experience by a restrained 47.7mm lug-to-lug distance. As is quickly becoming a theme here, this watch also wears smaller than its dimensions might suggest, feeling more like a 42 to 43mm watch on the wrist. When it comes to the cushion case shape from which this Turtle gets its nickname, the case again leans into circular brushing on top and polishing on the rounded case sides, topped with a 120 click bezel with a Pepsi themed aluminum insert. Being the most expensive watch we're looking at here today, the inclusion of a mineral hardlex crystal is a bit of a bummer, especially seeing what Orient is delivering in that it is just a flat sapphire execution in this instance. So if you are wanting a sapphire variant with this case format, your best bet is to pay a bit extra money for the King Turtle in its ceramic bezel insert as well. Beneath the crystal, the Turtle leans into a general visual design that, like the Citizen, is a modernized take that has been featured in Seiko dive watches since the 1970s, with much of the model's DNA stemming from Seiko's well-loved 6309 collection of divers. Printed in loom markers are executed over a metallic blue dial with a slight sunburst effect, with a day-date window, minimal dial text, including a Paddy signature at the 6, and Seiko's traditional handset with a red minute hand managing the time-telling duties. A major element of the Turtles that separated them from the SKX that came before is the inclusion of a hacking hand-winding movement in the form of the 4R36 as opposed to the 7S26 and the SKX series. That's one reason why I wanted to look at this watch instead of the SKX, while also considering the SKX is a JDM model that is difficult and increasingly difficult to get your hands on at a reasonable price now. While the 4R is an unsexy caliber like the other calibers we've talked talked about. It is well regarded and a durable caliber that has already proven itself over the last 10 years since the caliber's release. And while Seiko's quoted accuracy with this movement is -30 to +45 seconds a day, the vast majority, including this example, keep much better time than that. When it comes to the bracelet, this example is perfectly usable, although the beefier clasp and the diver's extension are a bit harder to work with. It features solid links, but does rely on the tedious but effective pin and collar system just like the Orient. Okay, so now that we've looked at these three watches, let's just try to put these watches in a box. And I don't like putting things in a box, but I'm gonna try my best here and just give a general take on which one of these watches is gonna be best for what type of instance. So let's talk about the probably minority in the audience, and that is people that actually wanna dive with these watches. If that's the case, going for the Seiko or the Citizen are going to be the way to go. Those two watches are going to be more true dive watches at the end of the day. They have great lume. They're gonna be ahead of the Orient. The Orient's still an adequate level of lume, but is not gonna have that ISO compliance, not a true dive watch. So those are going to be the ones to go for. But now let's talk to the actual majority of the people that are watching this video and just want, hey, the best water capable watch that I can buy for the money. And if that's the case, it's a little bit more involved, but still relatively straightforward in my eyes. I think in that case, looking at the Orient and the Citizen are going to be the better options. Now, the type of person that's gonna go for either one is going to be rather different. If you're a mechanical watch lover and you just want the best bang for buck, nice specifications as well with the sapphire crystal, range of deviation for that movement being very good as well, Kamasu just makes a ton of sense out there. It is not a true dive watch again, but I don't think for many people they give a damn at all. Also, when you're talking about the Kamasu, it's gonna have some more restrained wearing dimensions, which might be some nice appeal there. If you want to stay in the world of Orient and want a larger case size, I'd recommend looking at something like the Kano. But in this lineup, the Kamasu just sits in a nice place for those with a smaller wrist that just want the best bang for buck possible. I think that's great if you want something mechanical, because there's a lot of just, I would say, peace of mind that comes with that of a Citizen EcoDrive movement. This one is a bit more of the odd one of the bunch because it is going to have a quartz powered movement. But if you're talking about real world application and not having to just worry about something, the EcoDrive is probably one of the best movements that you're going to find and not having to worry about. Also, a solar powered watch and being a dive watch, I just think is a killer combination, because these are watches that are going to be meant to be worn out in sunny type of environments. This thing's gonna always be charged up. You're not gonna have to worry about it pretty much at all. It still can take a beating. It does have a mineral crystal on it, but in this case, you're talking about a much more affordable watch compared to that of the Seiko, and I think that is going to have a lot of intrigue involved with it. Lume is also very good. This is a true professional dive watch. The bracelet strap option in this instance, that polyurethane strap, is by far the worst, I think, of this trio. I think people like having the bracelet capabilities, but you put this on a NATO strap, I think it'll be more than good to go. It's a bit beefy in regards to the strap, so if you actually want true function, I'm sure that works. It's also very long. The tail on this thing is kind of ridiculous, so I'd probably go ahead and take the money that you're saving if you're going for this option and put it maybe towards a nice like NATO strap or something of that sort. So the Orient and then the Citizen, I think, are probably going to be the ones to go for when you're talking about just affordability, the best bang for buck. Whether you value mechanicals, you like that romantic idea, the Orient's gonna be the way to go. If you don't really care for an automatic movement, you just want something that looks the part, is the part with a true dive watch, I think the Citizen makes a ton of sense as well. But then that leaves the Seiko, which is kind of in this difficult spot. So you certainly could have put another Seiko watch here, but I felt the Turtle was probably the best entry-level option, professional option. There are plenty of different turtles out there, and I think many of the attributes described with this model can still be true with other turtle options as well. Now the Seiko does have a few things going for it as well. It's going to probably be the largest of the bunch. It's right there with the Citizen in terms of wearability. It just has a broader case profile compared to that of the Citizen, which have more kind of tapered lugs in their design. Seiko basically sets the standard when it comes to lume in this price category, and I think Citizen is right there in the same world, but Seiko I think still is the champion here. Movement is solid, very proven, although in terms of performance, I find most Orient calibers performing better than entry-level Seiko calibers. Finishing on the dial, I think, is going to be also the Seiko and the Orient in the lead. The Citizen just feels a little bit not as sharply executed with those markers, so the Seiko I think just does look the part too up close. The bracelet links themselves I think are going to be the most substantial with the Seiko, but the Orient's clasp is going to be a little bit less clumsy than that of the Seiko. The diver extension and how that operates with just kind of the thickness of the clasp It's just a little bit more cumbersome to work with on the Seiko. But unlike the other two watches, the Seiko was going to have just the richest diving pedigree and history on its side. This model family and design and just being beloved by enthusiasts, that does have some weight to it. And the Seiko design in terms of what it's going for, I think it's just proven the test of time over the years and what the brand is known for. But in terms of value, the Seiko, I think, is probably the one that's going to struggle the most of this bunch. And now with the Seiko SKX prices going up and some other just Seiko dive watches kind of more in that $500 range, I think Citizen and Orient are probably going to be better bang for buck in this instance, but I don't think that means that you have to dismiss the Seiko, because it certainly has things that it's going for as well and does arguably better than the other two options. But there you go, that is my take on looking at these three watches. I think all of these brands for the right type of individual make a ton of sense, but it really just comes down to you and what you're looking for from your watch. But I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. That does help out the channel. In addition, if you want to stay up to date with the content as well, be sure to follow on Instagram and TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of over 30 brands. So definitely go check that out. It's how we make all this content possible. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.